You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Day one of the Cincinnati Bengals in pads. Big change from the previous 5 practices. Dave Lapham was on the scene down at Paycor Stadium watching all the action, and all the excitement earlier today about the new locker room changes over to even more excitement as players had to make adjustments going from shells to pads.
Yeah, I mean, it's put on the big boy pads. Now it's football, and that's what getting into is the first day of real football. And, you know, there's some adjustment that goes with that while you're doing the more underwear ball type of things. You're working on a lot of technique. And and I can speak to it as a former player. I mean, you know, in the off season, you work on technique and you're not hitting. Day one, we put on pads. You know, it was day one of training camp. You're amped up, you're juiced up, and it's like all of a sudden you're overly aggressive and all your technique goes to pot. You know, so that's what guys I think are fighting through a little bit now. You want to you know, make sure you go out there and there's a lot of physicality to your game. You're trying to impose your will on the opponent. You're showing that try to let them know that every rep will be a battle kind of thing. And so it's all about tempo and temper and all that kind of thing. And with that, your technique can suffer some. So what you do is take a look at the tape and make sure that you're on point with your technique and not being overly aggressive and abandoning what the coaches have taught you and what's going to be good for you for the entire season. And that is kind of a natural phenomenon. And really, they were running interior line drills in the running game, and with only 4 defensive linemen, you have 5 offensive linemen. A lot of times it was a tight end, so you had 5 or 6 blockers on 4 defenders, and there were no linebackers to fill holes. So, you know, it looks like the offense is dominating, but you're going to watch the tape and see how guys are handling double teams, one-on-one matchups, and that sort of thing. So some of these drills, you know, it's not team football, but you're working through drills and one-on-one pass rush drills. You can learn some things there, but in my mind, that's the toughest drill there is for an offensive lineman because it's unrealistic how much room the guys have to work. You know, they get an edge on you. It can, if it's a quick edge, that's a problem. But if it's an edge, you know, that they don't have all that kind of space to try to get that edge on you, it's a little bit different thing to work through there. But the one thing that I will say, watching our interior defensive linemen rush the passer, man, there's going to be some guys there that are going to be a factor. I think, you know, through the course of the season, Sheldon Rankins is an ability, has a great ability as an interior pass rusher. B.J. Hill does. Both of the young rookies, Chris Jenkins and McKinnley Jackson, are different style of pass rushers. Both of them have, you know, an ability. One more powerful. Jenkins can use power, and he can use, you know, speed and quickness as well. And the other thing that's a big difference is you look at. You know, when DJ Reader was here, he was kind of the nose guard, you know, run stuffer, plugger kind of guy. He could still rush the passer for you. Now you got Rankins, who's an outstanding pass rusher and can play the run. So instead of having, you know, a situation where when teams change the strength of formation, you have to take your 3 technique from one side of the football to the other and run the guy from outside shoulder one guard to the outside shoulder to the other. You can slide the line. Because both of these guys, you know, Rankins, B.J. Hill, they're all capable of playing a 1 technique or a 3 technique. So you can slide, you know, the defensive line one way or the other instead of having to run your defensive tackle around. Because if they quick snap it, you know, there's a potential for you being, you know, not in a 3-point stance and ready to rock and roll. So, you know, watching that, I think, you know, is something that I think is going to pay dividends. And then also, you know, watching special teams, the new kickoff rule, Dave, I mean, it's like, in my mind, the best thing to do is get the ball on the ground quickly, almost like a drive pooch. You know, hang time means nothing anymore. You can't run to cover it until the ball hits the ground. So if you've got like a line drive, you know, pooch that hits the ground and can bounce almost anywhere, seems to me like that makes the most sense to do that. But shoot, they're changing. There are rules from the league office, the memos on changing rules on that kickoff thing. It seems like on a weekly basis. So hang time is definitely not as important. But boy, you have to have a returner that can field the ball, because you know how it is when that ball hits the turf and it's got a little bit of juice on it, and you're pooching it, and guys are running down 100 miles an hour covering. You know, that's going to be a different dynamic. That's going to be an interesting thing watch guys adjust to. There's no question.
Lap, one of the questions I have on that is I've seen other teams talking about, hey, we're not going to use our kicker for kickoffs anymore. We're going to try to find somebody else that can kick the ball because we don't want him out there risking injury, making a tackle, because whoever kicks that ball is going to be expected to go down and make a play.
Yeah, make a play. Not only make a tackle, but get off a block, to make a tackle, and that's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that part of it's handled. I know there are some people that are saying in the league, how about if we have 12 players on the field and the kicker kicks it and runs to the sideline, and the 12th guy is an automatic holder. So even if it's good weather conditions, you have a holder. If it's terrible windy weather conditions and all that, you can have a holder. And then that 12th man becomes a cover guy, and the kicker runs to the sideline. I don't know how much traction that's getting, but I heard that's been thrown out there a little bit. Another guy, Dave, that we've talked about that I think is going to be an interesting guy for this football team in terms of usage as a weapon is Gesicki, man. I mean, this guy, he sees the field pre-snap, post-snap. He knows what he needs to do to win the rep. He's one of those guys that just has a tremendous football awareness. His height, his length, his catching radius, and then his functional football speed, and then his football mind. And I think he's going to be a weapon that is going to really connect with Joe Burrow. And you can see the depth at the receiver position, and throwing him into that mix as well as a tight end / receiver kind of weapon. The tight end position is deep. I mean, talking to players every day coming off the football field, I always say, what's the number one thing that impresses you about your football team? Our depth, man. I mean, we got players everywhere. That's going to stand this football team in good stead. And during the pass rush, there was some good victories one-on-one. And so I thought B.J. Hill showed himself pretty well in the one-on-one pass rushes inside. Like I said, I think Rankins is going to be a factor again. And the thing that most of the offensive linemen, when they did have problems, it was just that they overset, or there was too much of an attack mode. The thing you have to have is patience, and you have to realize, and it takes a little while. I mean, your patience sometimes doesn't come back overnight. Your natural instinct is to attack, and you have to have that patience and make sure that you're not doing things and totally throwing your technique that you've learned out the window, like we talked about before.
You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. If you're looking for a new career, be sure to visit firststarlogistics.com for more details about openings for a great career at a great place to work. Lapham, I want to kind of dig in more to the trenches. You've been talking about them in this call. All eyes are going to be on this Bengals offensive line. The Bengals have gone out, not only spent money with signing free agents like Orlando Brown, this year Trent Brown, but also addressed things in the draft, Cordell Volson a few years ago, and then Mims in this past draft. Talk about the expectations, because we've all seen what's happened since Joe Burrow was drafted in the 2020. That season ended up being short because of a severe injury that he came back from, but fans are wanting Joe Burrow to be protected. The Bengals franchise and coaches, I'm sure, want the same thing. Talk about what should be expected out of this offensive line as they continue through camp.
I think this offensive line is going to be, one of the best in football, if not the best, quite honestly, because they've got size, they've got athletic ability. These guys can move. I mean, when you see the size of these people and their ability to move both ways, change direction and go inside is tough. These guys handle it so smoothly and so fluidly. The kick slide to widen people, these guys handle it so smoothly and so effortlessly. And then, the big thing that has to go on with the guys up front is communication. And these guys all, the communication that's going on at such an early stage of training camp is phenomenal. And, that you can't over communicate. It's like when everybody's on the same page, you have a heck of a chance of getting it done and getting it done at a high level, particularly with the talent that they've got up front. And man, I'm just excited to see how this unfolds for this group of offensive linemen. It's like I said, if there's a bigger group in the National Football League, I sure would like to meet them, because I mean this is a massive wall of humanity that are a bunch of athletes up front, and I'm sure Joe Burrow feels very, very comfortable and confident right now, and he should. I think this group's gonna just get things done at an extremely high level. And it's like sometimes when you come back ready to play, and there's shape, and then there's football shape, and sometimes you got to work yourself into football shape, even though you maybe kept yourself in good shape in the off season. But the one thing that keeping yourself in that kind of shape in the off season helps you do is you can play the game with different angles. It's like you feel much more confident. You're in the weight room, you get yourself stronger. You don't necessarily think, oh man, if somebody hits me in the chest and really tries to bull rush me, man, I'm not sure about that. And watching Mims in pass rush drill working against Miles Murphy today, the first pass rush, Miles Murphy decided I'm going to lower my head and hit him right under the chin, and Mims just absorbed that. Man, he was going to try to bull rush him, and Mims just kind of like hunkered down, settled in, and that ain't going to work. So then he tried to break him down on the outside, and he just walked him around the pocket. So those are the kind of things when in your mind that you can handle anything. That you can handle strength, and you're going to negate their strength, and then they're going to try to beat you with quickness, and you can move and take away that quickness. I mean, then you got people, man. I mean, you take away their biggest strength, and they have to go to the number 2 thing. Most players might not have a number 3 thing, So I like what I'm seeing out of this offensive line big time. I think they're a bunch of guys that are pros and are going to play at a real high level all season long.
I kind of want to stay on Mims. The Bengals signed Trent Brown, a behemoth of a man, just like Mims, just like Orlando Brown. Dave, I know it's too early to tell because, like I said, first day of pads.
Right.
But Mims, what you saw today, is there a possibility Mims could beat out Trent Brown on the proposed depth chart by the time we get to the start of the regular season?
Sure. I think that's the case. Any position group on the football team, it's like, hey, that's what training camp's all about. I mean, the receiver group is exceptionally deep and exceptionally strong. One thing that I you pick a position group. Like I said, the depth in this football team is ridiculous. So one thing that I learned early on, in fact, my first offensive line coach, taught me this the first year that I ended up starting. When I came back to camp, hey man, just because you're a starting player for us last year, there's no guarantee. You're not written down as an automatic starter. You got to go out and win that job. You got to go out and compete for that job, just like you did, the year you won that job. And that's how you have to approach it as a football player, the mentality of it. And then everybody go out and perform, and the best man win. And it doesn't matter if you're a rookie or if you're a 5-year player or a 10-year player, a 15-year player or whatever. I mean, that's the mindset that I think works the best. You go out there and like you're back to square one. If you start taking things for granted, it's not going to work. But the thing is, if that is the case, if that does work out that way, you got a tremendous insurance policy with guys that that are providing that depth, whether it be offensive line, whether it be wide receiver, whether it be whatever position. That's what we're talking about. That the depth of the football team. It's a lot of people they put so much into who's starting, and this as well as anybody, Dave, for as long as you've covered the game. You never know how many of your projected 22 starters are going to be starting for you 10 games into the season. You may be missing, God forbid, but you may be missing a few of them. So, that's the way it has to be approached. And right now, I think Mims is showing an ability to be a starting tackle in the National Football League. And the thing now, though, that they're doing, the coaches are doing a good job of, his offensive line coaches, helping him learn. And he's got a big task ahead of him. There's a lot to learn in this Bengals offense, and they're putting it in like groups. He's learning things by grouping plays together, and then they're introducing a few more things, and that's obviously the biggest difference between Trent around Mims is exposure to the National Football League. In Trent's case, exposure to many offenses in the National Football League. Whereas, Mims is just he's in the early stages of his first exposure to a National Football League offense. That's a big difference.
Lap, the next thing I want to kind of touch on is first day of pads. A lot of eyes also on the secondary of the Bengals. What's going to happen there, especially at cornerback? Latest on Cam Taylor-Britt, coming back from the tonsils, and then the battles between Dax Hill and DJ Turner. What are you seeing in the secondary right now?
Yeah, again, I'm seeing depth in that position group. Cam Taylor-Britt is working his way back on a day-by-day basis. They're not throwing him in there right away. He was out for a while with that tonsillectomy, so they're being not overly cautious, but they want to make sure that all systems are go for him before they try to do too much too soon with regard and respect to that. But I'll tell you, man, a couple of guys that have impressed me. Josh Newton at the corner position. This young man out of TCU is a very intelligent football player who's drafted in the 5th round, and he can play. I mean, he's physical. He can cover. I think he's playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think he felt like he was slighted being drafted in that 5th round, and man, he can play. And then another guy, Dijon Anthony at the safety position. This guy's in the same category. Was drafted with the first of 2 picks in the 7th round. And it's the exact same thing for him. He can run and hit. Both players are extremely physical. And when the pads came on, you could see that as well. And that I think that's going to carry over. The thing that DJ Turner has to make sure of, he has all the physical traits in the world, but he has to make sure that he he's up to snuff on every assignment, every single snap. I think sometimes there's a little yin and yang to his play, and it's not because of the physicality or the physical traits and attributes. I think maybe there's not quite sure with what the total assignment is, particularly if there's a strength of formation change or whatever the case may be. He just needs to fine tune that part of it, I think, a little bit. So again, there's a ton of battles going on there, and a guy that's smiling. When we talk about players that we're talking about here a little bit, like Josh Newton and Dijon Anthony, a guy that's smiling is Darren Simmons. There's no guarantee those guys will be taking special team snaps, but there's no question they're going to be in the mix. You have guys like that can run and love football and will put their nose in there and be physical. I mean, that's what he's looking for as well. And then, in speaking of Darren and the special teams, there are the three kickers, and we were talking about it today. A few of us were talking about, boy, when's the last time the Bengals had 3 kickers in the camp? And I can remember it happening because of an injury. A kicker sustained an injury. They weren't going to cut him because he was still, he had been performing pretty well, but he couldn't necessarily kick. Well, you don't want to have one place kicker taking too many kicks in training camp, so they bring in a third. But I can't really remember another time where there were 3 healthy kickers who every single one of them are capable of being a number 1 kicker on a football team. And I think it's probably the competition is going to rage on here through probably the end of this week. I would imagine this weekend there'd be some sort of a decision made. But in talking to Money Mac and in talking to Darren Simmons, there's no real major difference in their ability to hold. So, I mean, that tiebreaker is not going to be a tiebreaker. It's going to be decided by who feels more comfortable with actually punting the football. It's not, somebody's going to be odd man out here by the end of this week, but it's not going to be because he didn't have any kind of an ability to be a holder. And of course, that's a big part of what Darren expects out of his punter.
Practice number 6 is in the books. You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Lap, any final thoughts on a big day today down in Paycor with the new locker rooms? We talked about that, so people need to check out your instant reaction to the new locker rooms. And also, we posted today our one-on-one time we spent with the newest inductee to the Bengals Ring of Honor, Tim Crumrye. That video is up for everyone to see, both on In the Trenches with Dave Lapham and on the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. Lap's final thoughts, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it started out with taking a look at the locker room. Then it ended the day with the players in the locker room and addressing the media and all that sort of thing. And the very first day of practice with pads in between. So it was a very big day down here in multiple ways. And I think this was a good first day of pads wearing equipment. You're always going to take a look at the tape and make necessary adjustments. But I do think that the coaches were happy with what they saw. I think the tempo was outstanding, and it's like you want physicality from snap to the whistle, but you don't want any unnecessary extracurriculars and all that sort of thing. And I thought that there was a high level of physicality between the snap of the football and the whistle, and there was nothing happening after the play that was lingering and carrying on to the next play. So all of that was good. I thought they got a lot of good work in. And I'll tell you one thing, Dave, man, this locker room, I would have no problem being part of an organization that thinks this much of their players to put them in a locker room situation like they've done. I mean, I think probably some of the young guys are thinking, man, I could live down here. Why don't I just bring a bed down here? I've got everything I need on a day-to-day basis to compete at a high level on this football team. Look at what they're doing here. So I know the players appreciate it. And, it's like we said, it's going to be nothing but a plus tool when they're going out to get free agents, when players are talking to buddies around the league about what the Cincinnati Bengals organization has done for them with respect to the locker room, the accommodations. I mean, they're taking care of their players. There's no question.
Yeah, all they have to do is talk to Chad Johnson. He can tell them all about living in the stadium because he's done it. And it just makes it more exciting for everybody involved. Fans are excited about this, seeing that the Bengals are spending money and giving the players what they need to succeed at the highest level.
There's no doubt, Dave. I agree.
You've been in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. A reminder, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, share In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. That way we keep growing this channel. Also, comment. Leave your comments. We like comments. So until next time, Hooday.
Hooday, Dave.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.